Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I'm Andrew Musgrove and he is John Gibson, and we're here to talk about Newcastle's fantastic win over Wolves, 3-0 up at St James's Park. We'll dissect the victory, the goals, the chances Wolves spurned, and some top performances from Newcastle United's players. Then we'll turn our attention to Bournemouth, the next visitors to St James's Park on Saturday. Can Newcastle United make it 10 wins in a row in all competitions? This episode is brought to you by NordVPN, the only thing more sturdy than Newcastle United's defence at the moment. Sign up and protect yourself and help support the podcast. Let's get on with the show. John, welcome back. How are you keeping? Are you well?
I'm keeping well. 9 wins on the bounce, 26 goals scored, only 3 conceded, up from 12th to 4th, on the cusp of a cup final and still in the FA Cup. If I had the flu or anything, I wouldn't know I had it. I'm cooking on gas.
I was going to say, no need for you to get in your car and drive or get the bus anywhere. You'll just be floating along on this nice cloud you're
Absolutely.
on.
It's a long time, if ever, since I've enjoyed something like this, believe you me.
Yeah, been absolutely fantastic. So much to talk about. But I just want to get your initial summing up of the match last night before we get into the real detail about it. As we said there, 3-0 for Newcastle United. Goals from Alexander Isak with a brace, Anthony Gordon with the other one. Just give us your initial summing up of the performance and the result.
Business as usual as far as Newcastle United were concerned. This is what happens now when they play. Goals, if goal scoring is the lifeblood of football, and of course it is, that's what it's all about. We've never scored less than 2 goals per game in that 9-game winning run. Now, are we the entertainers or what? And where have I heard that word before? Um, so that makes you very comfortable. We've also got to remember that the defence has only let 3 goals in during those 9 games. And that's not luck. Of course, the way we play, we're going to give up chances because we play attacking football, high octane, going at 2 banks of 4 against Wolves, 5-man defence that never changed, never lost its shape, very few avenues open to us. If you attack relentlessly like that, you're going to get caught on the break on occasions. But we have a belief that we have enough firepower and we've got enough nous defensively to win any gamble. And that's the way it's working. I mean, the goalkeeper is unbelievable compared with what he was last season. The back four is tremendous. And there's the comfort blanket of Tonali playing in front of them, and he is quite exceptional in that position. So, we're going to, it's not a fluke that we've scored 26 goals and only let in 3. Um, and therefore, I'm comfortable at matches like last night. I'm waiting for the first goal, but I know it'll come. They did what they had to do. They tried to smother and kill the game and be disciplined and leave very few avenues open for us to exploit. But it was always going to be a matter of time. And when they were going to attack us, I wasn't too scared because they're third bottom for a reason. That is because they can't shoot. And, they don't score enough goals as well as letting goals in. And we have defenders like Byrne, um, like the goalkeeper. And by Jove, if I'm playing in the back four, I want Sandro Tonali in front of me, don't I? I mean, he is terrific. He's a firefighter. They should have him in Los Angeles. I mean, he puts out fires wonderfully well. He is the business. He's got a very, very good brain. He's quick. He's athletic. He's one step ahead in his thinking. And when he gets the ball, the wonderful thing is he isn't just a defensive player. He can come out with it and use it well. So he's an all-round talent, and we've got an awful lot of that at the moment. Of course, Isaac will take all the headlines, and rightly so. Gunslingers are the number one people in football, and this club in particular is built on number nines. So he will take all the headlines, and I don't begrudge him one single headline. But by the backup's pretty useful as well.
Yep, indeed. Look, I didn't think it was the best performance last night from Newcastle. I think even Eddie Howe said afterwards that he felt they could play better. Wolves, as we mentioned, they spurned a few chances. They did cut Newcastle up at times, but is it a sign of a good team, John, to win in the fashion Newcastle United did? You take your chances and maybe count on a bit of luck that when your opposition do get into a shooting position, they waste it, or you keep a pulls off a fantastic save and helps you get the 3 points.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting ludicrous, Andrew. We're now expecting us to play champagne football for 96 minutes every single game that comes along. You cannot do that for 38 Premier League games and all your FA Cup and League Cup games as well. That is a physical impossibility. We've seen Manchester City taper. We've seen Arsenal suddenly struggling. People are telling me Liverpool have tapered off. They've only lost one game all season, but because they get a couple of draws, they're tapering off. You cannot be right up there, bang on for 90 minutes every single game that is sent your way. And therefore, I almost smile when I hear any criticism because, by Jove, it's not so long ago where everything was doom and gloom and we were the poor side and we were leaking goals and we were not scoring goals. It's the other way on now. You're going to get chances, but the team hasn't got in Anthony Gordon and in Isak up front to take those chances. The opposition haven't. We have. And by the way, at the end of the day, I will just repeat what I say. Look at the record book. 9 games, 9 wins, 26 goals scored, 3 conceded. What more are we going to ask for? What more are we going to demand? That those 3 goals are wiped out? That we score 30 goals instead of 26? We've got this is Newcastle. We've been waiting for this for so long, and when it comes, we turn around and say, "But could it be a bit better? Were Newcastle not so good last night? Did we get away with things?" I'm not meaning you. I mean generalization. That's what happens, and it's because people care and because we're in the ascendancy and we're always going to look for that little extra and want that little extra, and of course we are, and that's fine. And Eddie Howe's exactly the same and the players are exactly the same, but my Jove, I'm grateful for what we've got at the moment.
No, I totally agree with you. It's a wonderful ride to be on. But I think, like Eddie Howe will be, it'll be important to just analyse what went wrong at the back at times last night. I know they didn't score Wolves, but that 1 or 2 opportunities where their man who had the ball was allowed to roam straight into the box, and that's something Eddie Howe will be picking up on and making sure against Bournemouth and the games to come that doesn't happen, because you don't want to be leaking goals. But I also think as well the fact that Newcastle didn't have it all their own way. The fact that Martin Dubravka had to make at least one brilliant save, a couple of efforts went wide, one hit the post. I think that's actually a good thing for Newcastle United, because this run they've been on, for the majority of it, they've had it pretty much their own way, give or take 2 or 3 games maybe, where they've not really been tested. And I just think being tested, you keep being called upon, one of the chances going wide by a matter of inches. I think that's a really good thing for Newcastle now, because it maybe just gives them that bit of a shock, a bit of a wake up at the back to say, okay, let's just not get complacent. Let's get refocused and make sure that actually how they got that chance doesn't happen again in 5 minutes. It doesn't happen again in the next game.
Yeah, I mean, I can follow that. The job is to look for perfection, to look for utopia. That's what you're all about. You must never be satisfied with what you've got. And I don't think that Eddie Howe or Mad Dog or Graham Jones will allow us to be satisfied in the dressing room with what we've got. But we must also privately be a little bit grateful for what we've got, because isn't it amazing world, Andrew? I mean, it was only a few weeks ago when we were 12th, some people, fans, were openly asking whether Eddie Howe's job was under any sort of threat. And now we're fourth in virtually in a cup final as well. I mean, football is a crazy old game. A few weeks back, we were talking about 12th mid-table going nowhere fast, and is Eddie safe? Now, I've read a couple of things where some people are saying, could we have an impact on the Premier League title? Well, I mean, isn't it? Both are absurd. Both are absurd. We haven't got strength and depth enough to have a go at the Premier League title, and to suggest that Eddie was ever under any pressure or anything other than a very good manager who hits a period like they all do. What's Pep hit recently? What's Arteta hit before he beat Spurs and narrowly beat Spurs? I mean, every manager and every team, however good it is not going to be 100% of the time. That is an impossibility. Um, the only worry I have is not whether Wolves could have scored. Or you're always going to have that in a match, especially if you play front foot attacking football. On the counter, you're going to get that. You're gambling that our firepower is bigger than their firepower, therefore we win over 90 minutes. But you're always going to get that. My concern more is injuries. If we can field our top 11, we are a super side. But we'll not be able to do that every game. We've already still without Pope. We were without Shaw because of illness. We've got Barnes out for a month. Now, luckily, they play in positions where we've got very adequate cover indeed. But I mean, if we lost Isak for any length of time, if we lost Gordon for any length of time, or if we lost Tonali for any length of time, we would suffer. And that is the only worry I have at the moment. The squad is not deep enough, but it's good enough when everybody's fit. By Jove, it is.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people share your concerns. I certainly do. And in an ideal world, they would go out and sign a striker this January, but I just don't think it's going to happen. Miguel Almirón does look like he's going to be on his way out, though, John, and we'll talk about that later in the show. You mentioned there, though, certain people talking about a potential title race, and it isn't just anyone that mentioned it. It isn't just anyone who's uttered the words and created all these headlines. It's Alan Shearer who has said it on Match of the Day. He was asked about it, and he said, no, it's not kind of out of the question. The form that they are in, the way they are looking, they are defensively solid, keeping clean sheets. There is no doubt that they've got the system working, and with Alexander Isak up front, you've got a chance. I have to say, when I was watching that last night after I got in from the match, I did have a little chuckle to myself because I don't share Alan Shearer's sentiment on the title race. I'm happy he's as happy as me when Newcastle United are winning. Of course, he is. He's a Newcastle United fan at heart, so we all know that. But I think he might he might have woke up this morning maybe regretting that comment.
I don't think he will, because he's not that sort of guy. But I don't think also that it's shared by so many people. He's pulling up Newcastle as he should. And if you go on current figures, you can't, knock them out of the equation. But it's only a few weeks ago where everybody's saying Chelsea can win the title, and their manager was saying, no, we can't. And now it's what's happened to Chelsea. They're a bit of a disaster. And now everybody's saying Nottingham Forest can win the title, but I say no, they can't. And now people will start saying very shortly, and Alan's preempted it, that we can win the title. And I'll say again, no, we can't. And nobody would enjoy that more than me because I would be able to die happy if that happened. But I can't see it this season. We're what, 7 points or more behind Liverpool, who have got a game in hand. They're supposed to be tapering off. I love tapering off when it means you've only lost one game all season. They've got to start stumbling like Devon Lock for us to have a chance. No, we're not going to win the title because we're one injury, i.e. Isak, away from disaster. If everybody stayed fit and we could play our 11 every week, we would have a super chance. And it doesn't matter who we play now. I never think the worst. And by Jove, I've spent years thinking the worst and fearing the worst on as matches have loomed, and I don't do that anymore, and that's wonderful. But I'm trying to be realistic, and that's why I brought up Andrew that just a few weeks ago, one or two people were wondering about Eddie Howe's future. I mean, we've gone from that to can we win the title? I mean, it would be lovely to keep a sense of proportion in the middle of there and be realistic. But having said being realistic, in theory, we could win the title the way we're playing. but in theory, Nottingham Forest could. But we're not going to. But just let us get in the Champions League and win the League Cup, and I'll be a happy bunny. That will do for me.
It'll do for everyone, I think. He said it with a little bit of a smile on Match of the Day. I don't know if he wholeheartedly meant it, but look, Newcastle 9 points off the top with
9.
with Liverpool, as you say, having a game in hand. So I don't think it is going to happen. It's a possibility. I mean, the domestic treble is still a possibility, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. It was another John. No, it was another game, John, that on paper Newcastle should have won. Everyone went into the game expecting them to win. Obviously, we've been bitten before. The amount of people who said to me as I was at the ground, yeah, but what about that West Ham game? And yeah, it was in the back of my mind, going off how we went into that game so confident we should be winning. But it seems like Newcastle have turned the page. They've come around that corner. Maybe a bit of a mentality switch where they're going into games that they're expected to win. Maybe they expect to win in the dressing room, but they're still focused enough to make sure they do the job that they need to do to win the game. How nice is it to be going into these fixtures going, okay, Newcastle should beat Wolves, and then Newcastle United do beat Wolves?
Yeah, I mean, I think every Geordie's lived so long on scraps that we do fear the worst. And of course, the worst was happening earlier in the season. I think we lost at home to West Ham. We lost at home to Brighton, did we? We got beat away against poor sides. It happened early in the season. Isak wasn't scoring goals. He scored one in the first X number of games, and that was a tap in against Spurs. I mean, it's changed dramatically. And yes, there's been a switch in mentality, as you were suggesting, but there's also been a switch on the field, and that's Tonali to number 6 and Bruno to number 8, and they fit like a glove. I mean, why were they played ever in any other position? It's like looking at originally what happened with Joe Linton, who looked a fish out of water at number 9 and then was moved into midfield and looked at Colossus. We played these two, Bruno and Tonali, for some of the time the other way around. Bruno was the 6 and Tonali was on the right side attacking. Both can do that job, but it's not their greatest strength. They're doing the job that is their greatest strength now. And while Isak would be the man that we would miss the most because of his record of goals, I suggest we would miss Tonali. Both the back four and the midfield would miss Tonali like there's no tomorrow. Would also miss Anthony Gordon, especially now Harvey Barnes is injured and Almirón could be going because we're going to be very thin out wide. But there's other players as well as Isak. But I mean, Isak is just phenomenal. I'm glad your apprehension about whether he would play or not turned out to be unfounded because it staggered me you had it in the first place. As I said, he would have played on a crutch, I felt, on one leg as far as Newcastle are concerned. But when you look, 2 goals and assist in that game, he scored 25 goals last season. He's got 17 this. He scored in all the last 8 matches. His record at Newcastle, Andrew, 90 appearances, and some of those are subs, so he wasn't on 90 minutes, and a lot of the time he is subbed late on. 90 appearances, 52 goals. Now, I don't care if he's wearing the number 14 shirt or what number 14, what number is on his back. He's a number 9 legend because he plays as a number 9. And the phrase was started because every centre forward in the old days always wore number 9. I would swap him for no one. For Haaland, for anyone at all in the game, I wouldn't swap him. He's as good at assists as he is at scoring. He makes it all look effortlessly. He sniffs out danger in positions and whatever. He is the real deal. And it's awkward. I mean, I've said a piece in the Chronicle, and I've said, and I wrote or I've written for tomorrow a piece saying, he's centre stage, he's the star centre stage, but the chorus line's off terrific. And then I corrected myself and said, no, I don't mean that. How do you call Gordon and Tonali chorus line? They are top quality. So's Bruno. And so are a few others, including the surprise guys, Dubrovka, Byrne, and Murphy. but all is going well at the moment. And we shouldn't be afraid of it. We should embrace it. We shouldn't be negative about it. We shouldn't be saying, oh, well, it's got to come to an end sometime. Will it be Bournemouth? Or so and so might have scored against us. I.e., did they? No, they didn't. How many goals did Wolves get? None. How many goals did we score? 3. Will 3-0 not do for us? It'll do for me, I tell you.
Yep, certainly so. And I wasn't going to mention my concerns about Alexander Isak's fitness. I mean, it just proves that I know absolutely nothing about football, perhaps. He grabbed the brace,
Not
as you
at all.
mentioned, John.
Not at all. That wasn't opinion. That was us stating facts and everything. It doesn't mean you know now. I was just I mentioned it purely because when I got the team sheet and that, I thought of you, and not in a sarcastic way. I thought how relieved you would be to see that name on the team sheet because it is so important to us. And the one thing that discussion we had on the last podcast brought into sharp focus was that at some stage that will happen where Isak's got to miss a game. And that is my concern when that does happen because we haven't got adequate centre forward cover. But that's an argument for another day. Right now, nobody's raining on our parade.
Yep, indeed. And as you mentioned there, he grabbed the brace. He makes history, becomes the only Newcastle United player to score in 8 consecutive Premier League games. He's also now just 2 goals away from becoming Newcastle's second all-time record goal scorer in the Premier League. Just Alan Shearer, a little bit ahead of him. But that is some achievements. He would go ahead of Peter Beardsley and Callum Wilson in the list if he grabs 2 more goals, which he obviously will do. Hopefully he does against Bournemouth on Saturday. As you mentioned, he's just world class, absolutely brilliant, deadly. He flashed one wide before he opened the scoring, John. He took a little bit of a deflection, but it was heading in, so it's his goal. But it was the second goal for me that I absolutely loved. First, the pass from Bruno to pick him out over such a short distance as well. Unbelievable. But for then Isak, one touch, turn, bang, back of the net. Doesn't even look up to see where the goal is. He just knows where it is. As you said, there is no one that you would swap him for. He's the best striker in world football right now. And he's just going to get better and better and better.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. My dear mate, Supermac, always used to, centre forwards will always miss goals. They'll also score goals. But Supermac used to say he was never afraid to miss because when he missed a goal, a shot went wide, he knew he was one step, he said, closer to scoring. And he actually, one of the many books that he wrote was called Never Afraid to Miss. And he wasn't. Where you see some strikers, when they miss, they go in their shell and actually go missing for the next 10 minutes. You think, where are they? Where have they been? Because they're so nervous, they don't want to miss again. So they don't get in the penalty area and hunt down goals. All people will miss goals. Isak has missed a few one-on-one with the keeper this season. They're not his greatest strength. When he goes one-on-one with the keeper, you would normally turn away and look for the ball being put on the halfway line for the kickoff. But he's missed a few of those. But centre forwards do. And the good ones go back in there into the minefield and do it again. And then next time they score. And Isak's done that time and time again this season. 25 last season. We thought that was a golden season that is almost unbeatable. He's got 17 this, from a slow start. So where could he end up this season? He could challenge that total very much indeed. He is quality. And we must realise we've got to, it's okay once players have gone and we suddenly haven't got Shearer anymore and we haven't got Supermac anymore. And we say, oh, what a great centre forward he was, etc., etc. But let's appreciate them while they're here and let's make certain we keep them. And he is one of those. We will be sitting in 10 years' time or 15 years or 20 years. I don't know if I will be, but other people will be. And they'll be saying, can you remember that Alexander Isak? What a player he was. Can you remember how silky he was? How he could flow, how he could make goals as well as take them, how he looked as if he had the skills to be a midfield player. He could be an outside left, or he could be a centre forward. Let's enjoy him while he's here and make certain we keep him here and make certain he feels the love because we want him here. I tell you what, everybody wants him. but only us have got him.
Yeah, and I love the way, John, that he drops deep or he comes in from the left. And when he's got the ball at his feet and he's running into space, the defenders just must want the ground to swallow them up, because there was no greater sight from a Newcastle point of view of Alexander Isak running into space. But you saw it last night, the fullbacks didn't know which way to turn, and it just must be a terrifying prospect trying to stop Isak.
Well, if you're a centre half, what do you do against Isak? When he drops deep, when he goes on the right wing, do you go with him? Or do you just let him go? And if you let him go, who then picks him up? Is it zonal marking? What do you do about him? I mean, most centre halves, like centre forwards, they play right on their toes and go for a man-to-man battle, like, say, Billy Whitehurst used to do, or perhaps Mick Quinn did. I don't mean they were bad centre forwards. It was their style of play. But you know where the guy is. With Isak, he's a nightmare. Where is he? Is he dropping deep? Has he gone deep? Is he out wide? Is he coming in? Is he lurking in the box? What do you do as a centre half when he's your man? I mean, he must drive defenders crackers.
Oh, indeed, and you can see the kind of the trepidation when they're facing up against him, because you could be a centre back, you could be a full back, you just don't know where he's going to go, because he's kind of all over the place in many ways. But he obviously then he gets it in the box and he's grabbing the goals. And as usual, John, Alexander Isak, when he performs, all that does is hype up links to other clubs. We know he's not going anywhere. He's happy at Newcastle. He's talking about how magical it is to play here. He's playing with a smile on his face, but it doesn't stop other outlets from a national perspective from trying to push him towards Arsenal or wherever. I mean, you can't afford him, Mikel Arteta. But if you were sit across the table from Mikel Arteta, whoever their sporting director is, and they said, "John, I want to take Alexander Isak away from Newcastle United," what would you say to them?
I would say, have you got 250 million? No, you haven't. Well, the door's just over there. Would you close it on the way out, please? And I would also say, wait a minute, you haven't won anything recently. You might have had two runners up in the Premier League. We had that with Alan Shearer centre forward in the Entertainers days, but you haven't won it yet. Now, who's to say that we could win the League Cup this year and Arsenal could win nothing? They're out the League Cup if we get to the final, and they're already out the FA Cup, so they've got to win the league to win something. We could actually have a trophy this season, and Arsenal could have none.
Indeed, and it's maybe
So
in
if
the
I
eyes of
was
some.
Isak, I would think about that before I would want to go.
I was going to say, for some, it's not an upgrade moving to the Emirates, because Newcastle United are on such a trajectory here. And hopefully in the summer, when they can spend a little bit more, hopefully they're planning for a Champions League campaign as well. The sky's the limit, really. You can just keep going and going and going, obviously within the restrictions, but it could be a very exciting campaign to come next season. All depends, of course, about keeping this form up, this campaign, and getting into that Champions League position.
I
But
mean,
the moment they are fourth.
that's essential. And I mean, the way you keep your best players is getting into Champions League, because the best players aren't Geordies. They're not fans from cradle to grave like you and I, because they haven't got an allegiance. He's actually a Swede, Bruno's a Brazilian, Gordon's is Scouser, etc., etc., etc. You've got to go down to Dan Burn and people like that for Newcastle United heart and soul. So these people, they love Newcastle, they love the city, they adore the fans, but their career's short, and you've got to be at the top of the table. And if Newcastle want to keep their best players and attract others, they've got to get in the Champions League. And if they can get in the Champions League this season and win the League Cup, then they're cooking.
Yeah, fingers crossed that can all happen. Just a reminder, ladies and gents, hit that link in your podcast description box to get a very special discounted offer exclusive to you guys watching and listening for your NordVPN plan. Last night, John, I was lucky enough to watch the game with Newcastle United cult hero Peter Lovenkrands. And before the game, he was talking about his two favourite players at Newcastle United, and he mentioned Gordon and he mentioned Alexander Isak. He also did predict 3-0 as well, which he was keen to make sure everyone knew. But he spoke about their creativity and their directness, but also their partnership. And then you chuck in Jacob Murphy as well, who was again in really good form last night. Had two efforts saved. You might say he got an assist because he did pass the ball over to Isak for the effort that got deflected. But the front three, those three, Gordon, Isak, and Murphy, they're just in brilliant form, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I mean, you expected it from Isak and Gordon, but I mean, three guys who, with utmost respect, we probably thought were rank and file: Dubrovka, Dan Burn, and Jacob Murphy, are all three playing out of their skins. Now, we would have said, and I include me in this, we would have said a little while back, if you're a Champions League side, those three guys are on your subs bench. They're not in your team if you're playing in the Champions League. They've come into a side that has won 9 on the bounce, and all three of them are playing out of their skins. So while I pay fulsome tributes to our blue chip players, I've got to mention what those three have done, because it's been beyond the call of duty and beyond expectation for me personally. And it's been consistent. Yes, you can have a good game. You know, Murphy can have a good game where everything he tries, he goes on the outside, he comes on the inside, crosses, everything comes off. But you do it the next game and the next game and the next game. And he has. And by the way, the defence has been marshalled by Dan Burn. No question about that. And by the way, the goalkeeper, 36, his birthday against Wolves, clean sheet. Was I pleased for him? Did he deserve that clean sheet as a birthday present? By Jove, he did, because he's been terrific since he came back into the side. And I thought his best days were behind him. And I thought that after watching him in the side last season when Pope was out injured. And I thought he was quite iffy. He has been terrific this time. You know what? Tomorrow, if Nick Pope was 100% fit, I'd play Dubrovka against Bournemouth.
Well. I didn't. I mean, if you'd, I'm lost for words, John. I'm lost for. I agree with you, but that is up there with one of the statements I'd never ever thought I'd hear you say. But thoroughly
Well,
deserved on what you've got for
it's
the top.
if you have the shirt and you are playing well, you ought to keep it. That's the only way you're going to generate a fighting spirit within the club, and not where I'm automatically in the team, come what may, every week. So if I get us to go out for a couple of games, it doesn't really matter. I can sit in the deck chair because I'm the number one guy. You've got Dubrovka on form, on current form, and this could change. Heaven forbid it changes against Bournemouth or against Southampton or against Fulham in the next games. And it could, but on his current form, he's better with his feet than Pope, and he's done enough saving. I'm not degrading Nick Pope, and I'm not suggesting that Dubrovka would be in my side for the rest of the season. And I'm not suggesting we don't need to buy a goalkeeper for going in the Champions League. But right now, I would keep Dubrovka because he's earned that respect.
Let us know in the comments your thoughts on that. I know it's one that does split opinion, so really intrigued to see how you guys are feeling about it. And let's get back to the midfield. You've already talked about the likes of Bruno and Tonali, and it seems like we're talking about those two in particular every single week. But I thought Bruno last night was exceptional. For me, it was between Bruno and Tonali for man of the match. Bruno got the assist for the second Isak goal, but I thought he was brilliant throughout. 91 touches, which was the most in the game. 4 key passes, wins 7 out of 12 duels, 57 passes overall. He's just been brilliant since he's been moved forward, and he just seems to be getting better every single game in that new position.
Yeah, it's called understanding as well. I mean, any great side is made up of partnerships. Like you can get down the right, you can get Livramento and Murphy. Down the left, you can get Hall and Gordon. You can get Tonali and Bruno knowing what they're doing together in that midfield. It's partnerships are what good teams are built upon. And Bruno is much the better player when he's allowed loose to go forward and attack. When he's asked to be a 6, he's always wanting to burst out of his straitjacket, I feel, and go marauding. And sometimes You don't want him to do that if he's playing six, because then he's out of position when they counter attack. Tonali's more disciplined, and he's got a great range of passing, so he comes into play when we are attacking. And Bruno, all his strengths are epitomised in the role he's given now to play eight, and he is looking the player that become a cult hero when he first arrived at this club. He's become that again, and he looks like a Brazilian midfielder, and you can't pay much more of a compliment than that down the years, because they've had some wonderful ones. And yeah, him and Tonali is so vital, as is Livramento and Murphy and Hall and Gordon.
Yeah, and as I said there, it was between Bruno and Sandro for my man of the match. I did give it to Tonali, just simply because of the engine on him. He's got kind of the engine of Gary's speed, the way he gets about the pitch, and he just never looks tired at all. And there was a great example that Alan Shearer highlighted on Match of the Day when Tonali's skipping down the right, trying to get Newcastle United third. It's the last minute of the game. Puts the ball in the box. I'm not sure who loses it, but a Newcastle United player loses it. And Tonali gets up and just chases the ball down. It's not his mistake, but he gets up to the pitch, gets the ball back for Newcastle United, and the danger is eradicated. And that, for me, just sums up what Tonali has brought to this side, like that never-ending desire to make sure Newcastle are in control. And he had another fantastic game last night.
Yeah, and yet they looked 75% of what they are when they were played the other way around. When Bruno was six and Tonali was eight, they were still good players. You could see that, and you knew that. But they were 75% effective. They're now 100% effective, both of them.
Yep, and it's great to see it, and long may it continue. And of course, Joe Linton alongside them as well. I just want to mention the other key takeaway from last night's game. I know you've mentioned earlier in the show, John, that they don't have the squad depth to mount a title challenge, and I agree with you. I think they have depth across the majority of positions, bar one or two, but it's probably the quality that they lack on top of that as well. But last night, what we saw really, for maybe only the second or third time this season, was Eddie Howe able to use his bench fully. And he did that last night with the changes he made. Kieran Trippier, Miguel Almirón, William Sula, Joe Willock, Lewis Miley. Have I missed anyone? I don't think I have missed anyone. But it was great to see. That's five, isn't it? Yeah. So it was great to see how Newcastle in a position where Howe can make those changes, but also bringing on decent enough players to see out the game. And I just took away that actually, you know what? He's got that depth now. Okay, it might not be title challenging depth, but he's still got the depth to bring players on, to bring key players off and get them rested ahead of a big game on Saturday.
I would slightly disagree, Andrew. I know where you're coming from, and we did do that, but when we ended up without all the three front players, Isak, Gordon, and Murphy, and I thought in the last 20 minutes, and Eddie Howe said this as well, we lost our way. We were 3-0 up, so it was okay. But when we had Almirón and Sula, who is raw, and we've said that plenty of times, etc., when they were playing, we lost our way a little bit. Now at 3-0, it didn't matter, but they got a couple of chances during that period, and luckily we had Tonali still on the pitch, putting out fires all over the place. But no, I mean, Almiron's got to go. Usola is a long way off being what he's got to be and what he will probably become, but you don't want him playing centre forward in the Premier League for any length of time more than he played against Wolves, etc., etc. I think we lack depth. There was only certain positions where we didn't lack depth, which is, outside left when we had Barnes and Gordon. We lack it with centre half. We don't want midfield three broken up, even though we've got Miley and Longstaff, I guess, who could also go. I don't think the depth is good. I honestly don't. And we lost our way when the big hitters come off, and I thought it showed the difference in quality between the first 11 and the guys that come on.
I don't necessarily disagree with that, and I think the positions that they do lack depth in, it showed you last night. Obviously, we're talking about Isak and on the wings. as well. But I think it was just good to see Eddie Howe have those numbers to bring off the key players, even though you are right, they did tend to lose their way as the game went on. Yeah, you are right. Miguel Almirón looks like he's on his way out. He's going to go back to the MLS. £11 million, I think, is the fee that's been touted about. I mean, what can you say about Miguel Almirón? He's given his all to the club, but now is the right time to move on.
Yes, there's absolutely no question about that. And he's looked this season on the odd occasion he's come on as a sub. He's only made one Premier League start, I think. He's looked as if he's known that he's on his way out and his time's gone. He will go with my grateful thanks and the thanks of a lot of Geordies for what he did in what I call the bad old days, when we were struggling, etc. He was an outlet for us and he kept us going with his enthusiasm and his running. But we just got too good for him. We've progressed under the new owners and Eddie Howe to a situation where we need better players than Almirón, and Jacob Murphy has become a better player than Almirón. I don't know what's going to. You're not going to move to Atlanta as a member of the honorary member of the Almirón supporters fan club. We're not going to see you in America, are we, Andrew?
They can have the keys to the HQ and they can have all the posters and which have all been put in storage. They've been in storage for the past year or so. Ever since, what did he do? He dived against Brighton last season, and for me that was the end. I mean, I'd already pretty much shut up shop, but once he fell at the ground and there was no one around him, I kind of said, "Yeah, you're not for me anymore, Miggy." But look, he's been fantastic, and again, look, he came on yesterday, and he lacks that real quality to change a game, but it's his work ethic and effort and commitment to the cause, which still offers a lot. Of course, it's not enough to be first choice and to want to stay, but it's been brilliant nonetheless. Some really happy memories, some really good goals, important goals scored, and we wish him all the well. Or we wish him very well in his new journey or return back to America should the deal get done.
I think he'll do well back there. He'll be a hero back there, etc., etc. He only had that one purple season, didn't he, when he scored something like 11 goals, which was terrific. And you know what? If you look at history, every forward player has one purple season at least. But the secret is that quality players do it every season. They don't have one season. And I'm not being nasty. I'm just having a little twinkle and a smile. Have you ever seen an outside right with a worse right foot?
No. But I understand that criticism fully. There is an understanding that although they will get £11 million or thereabouts from him and get his wages off the books, that there's a strong chance Newcastle will not bring in anyone this month, to replace Miggy or reinvest it elsewhere in the squad. I still stand by my prediction that I made midway through December that I think this will be a month of no incomings for Newcastle United. And even if they sell Miggy, I still think they'd have to go on to sell maybe Sean Longstaff or a Kieran Trippier to then have enough money to really reinvest, because they are aware of the PSR accounts. They're going to try, I think, and keep their money in their pocket until the summer where they can really, really, really invest. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if Miggy went and no one came in. But John, is that a bit of a risk in your opinion? Would you like to see them bring someone in to replace Miggy?
Yeah, it's a slight risk numerically at the moment, because if Bond's been out for as well for the next month, because it leaves you, what cover have you got on the two wings for Gordon and for Murphy? Joe Linton can play out there, I guess, on the left, and you bring in another midfielder. But if he's got injured and Gordon moved to centre forward, you're struggling, aren't you? You're mixing and match. It's a little bit of a risk, but you've got to sell Miggy, because every transfer window you don't sell Miggy, his price is slashed. He's on the wrong side of 30. His contract will run out eventually. He runs out of steam. I mean, his body language. He's known he's sitting in the departure lounge at Newcastle Airport, and I think the same applies to Sean Longstaff. Bless him. I think when he played the other day against Bromley, I thought he looked as if he had the cares of the world on his shoulders, that he may be transferred in the way that Elliot Anderson was, either in January or in the summer. And being a Geordie like Elliot Anderson, who didn't want to go, he might be having a lovely time now, but he didn't want to go, Elliot Anderson. And I don't think Sean Longstaff wants to go. And I think it's depressing him that he sees an inevitability that he will go at some stage. May not be January, but it may be then the summer. And he played with I looked at him and I looked at Miggy against Bromley, where you would expect him to start against a League Clubs, League Two side, and I thought, you two think your future's elsewhere, don't you? And that the club think your future's elsewhere.
Yeah, maybe notable for some that Longstaff was on the bench last night and didn't come off, and it was Lewis Miley that came on instead of him. You can read between the lines that might have just been a decision anyhow made because of the game. Also, it might be a nod to what's to come down the road. Right, let's talk about Saturday. Bournemouth, 12:30 kickoff, which means it's going to be an early start, isn't it, John? We'll have to be thereabouts about 10:30, 11 o'clock, won't we?
Yeah, the chucky eggs and the soldiers to put in will have to go on a bit early on Saturday, I think.
Indeed, it will be a very, very different task facing Newcastle side. I love Bournemouth, John. I love watching them. I love the way they've built the team. I'm a big fan of the manager. And I know you're going to say, well, let's not worry about them. But I'm just putting on record that I'm a big fan of what's happening down at the South Coast. I think they've got some really good players. And Newcastle are going to have to really be focused, because this was kind of the game that I pinpointed, even ahead of the Tottenham game, really, that I thought, oh, this is going to be a real test of Newcastle's character and whether they can maintain this form. And I don't change my opinion. I think even despite the fact that Bournemouth are without even Evan Nielsen and Unal, who would replace Evan Nielsen, both are injured, both are out long term, they've still got players in which I look at and think they could hurt Newcastle. And actually, I wouldn't mind a couple of them in Newcastle's starting 11 either.
Well, we always signed from Bournemouth, don't we? With Eddie's history and going back before Eddie, when we signed Ryan Fraser and Callum Wilson, and right away up to then getting Lloyd Kelly, etc. We signed from Bournemouth all the time. It Something has got to give on Saturday, and that's the intriguing thing. Literally, something's got to give. Newcastle have won 9 games on the bounce, which is equal to club record, and Bournemouth have gone 10 games unbeaten, which is their best run of the Premier League era. So one of those records has got to go, because even if it's a draw, our 9-win record's gone, we're still unbeaten, and their unbeaten record goes unless they get something at St James's Park. So something's got to happen. And I've got the utmost respect for them, because this is a club. You see, we've talked about, we beat the big beasts away from home. We beat Manchester United, we beat Spurs, we beat Arsenal, the big beasts. These are supposed to know their place and be a small club by Premier League standards, because they're playing in front of gates that are 11,000. We play in front of gates that are 52,000. So if we've got restrictions in the transfer market with financial fair play, what sort of restrictions have they got with the money they can bring in, with their limited situation? And to play, they've got by far the smallest gates in the Premier League. And to do what they've done when Eddie was there and what they're doing now, to be unbeaten in 10 and to virtually beat Chelsea in the last time out. It was about the 92nd or 93rd minute when Chelsea at home got the equaliser. They've done terrific, and I have got the utmost respect for them. And this has, I think you're right, is more, if worry is the wrong expression, because at the moment I don't worry, but I do think this is one of the trickiest matches we've had. And if this run had to come to an end, you'd think somebody like Bournemouth would be capable of doing it. But why has it to come to an end? Why doesn't their record come to an end? 10 unbeaten.
Well, I think there's more chance that Newcastle United's record will continue. As much as I've just talked up Bournemouth, I mean, they are missing not only their 2 main strikers, as I spoke there, but a host of other players. Adam Smith, Alex Scott, Marcus Tavernier, Siniestra. They then lost James Hill as well. And they only had one man on the bench against Chelsea, as you mentioned there, the game against Chelsea Stamford Bridge, that they could bring on as a senior pro. And that was Justin Kluivert, of course, the son of Patrick Kluivert, who scored and played for Newcastle United. But that shows you the injury crisis that they're going through. So, they haven't really got
By
game
the way,
changers.
don't give them a penalty, Andrew, because Kluivert is one of the best penalty takers I've seen. I mean, he's phenomenal. I mean, he's like Ivan Toney used to be, etc., etc. They had 6 academy players on the bench, and they still go to Chelsea, who celebrate an equaliser at home to Bournemouth as if they'd won the cup, because that's the way it was. And they are terrific. And it is the manager and the club and the players deserve all the respect that is coming their way. But let us not play down ourselves. They'll be saying we are 10 unbeaten, we're going up there, they've won 9 on the trot, there's 52,000 mad Geordies in the crowd, or 50,000 of them are Geordies, and they've got Tonali, they've got Isak, they've got Bruno, this is some task. As Joe Harvey used to famously say, let them worry about us rather than us worry about them. And he was talking broadly. He didn't mean you don't have any respect, or you go gun ho, or you don't do your homework and you're not realistic. But let's not get carried away. Supermac used to say to me, when he played for Newcastle and he played for England, he said, when I played for Newcastle, Joe Harvey made me feel like Desperate Dan, 8'6", and I went out there and thought I could bury the opposition. When I played for England under Don Revie, he gave me a manual as my to go to bed with and read in bed that was thick enough to choke a horse, and all it told you was how great each individual player was that you were going to play against, until when you finished reading it, you had an inferiority complex. So, I want to concentrate on what we are doing well. And if what we are doing well, we do again, we'll beat Bournemouth.
Yep, fingers crossed that is the case. I mean, Eddie Howe has got a horrendous record against Bournemouth. He hasn't won yet against them,
Terrible.
but as I said to my colleague Aaron Stokes, because he brought that up yesterday, and I said, well, look, this is the season when Newcastle United are getting rid of all their horrendous records. Went down to Old Trafford, won. Went to the Emirates, won. So why can't Eddie Howe get his first win over Bournemouth? I'm backing him to do so, and a win would take them up to 41 points. It could take them into third. Should Nottingham Forest lose on the weekend again, should we have a guess? They're playing Southampton, so at home. So you would bet that they win that game. But anyway, Newcastle United can consolidate their place in the top 4 with the win over Bournemouth. Just talk to us then quickly, John, about the team on Saturday. I would suspect, other than maybe Share for Botman, if Share's past fit, that might be the only change. But even saying that, if Share is past fit, Botman and Byrne look like they've been playing with each other for 3 or 4 years. They were superb against Wolves. So I wouldn't necessarily change it. I think it's only if Botman is feeling a bit fatigued. Eddie Howe's kind of referenced that in recent days, but it's really up to the medical staff and Botman to make that decision, I guess.
And is Shaw going to be over his illness, which he was supposed to be kept out with an illness? How strong is he going to be? I mean, I would go with the same team, barring anything that's happened that we don't know anything about, and we won't find out at Eddie's press conference because he wouldn't tell us, because he doesn't want to tell Bournemouth. And I'd go with the same team. That's been one of the secrets of Howe's success recently. He's known what his best side is, and in the main, when he's been able to, he's just played the same side again and again and again and again to form these partnerships, and they've formed terrifically. Why would you want to voluntarily change the team? You'd only change the team if Botman was suddenly so fatigued he was struggling, or some other player had a knock that we don't know anything about it. If the 11 are fit and raring to go, just go with them again.
Yeah, totally agree on that. How's it going to go, John? Are they going to win?
I think we'll win. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a canter. or an easy win. And I think we would probably win by a single goal. I don't mean necessarily 1-0, but 2-1 or whatever, 1-0 or 2-1. I think it'll be tighter than some of the matches recently have been. Um, but really, if we win, I don't care too much if it's a bit tighter because we've won again. And I think we will win. I think it'll be tough. I think they are organised and they demand in order to get respect, and I give them full respect. You obviously do because you mentioned it, and Eddie will because it not only is it his old club, but in the Premier League, not in the League Cup. In the Premier League, he's got an awful record against Bournemouth, not in the League Cup, 4 draws and a defeat. So, but all as you said, all these things are there to be changed. I mean, we hadn't done a double over Wolves since
1905.
1905, and we did. So they're there to be beating all these records. So let's go out and beat it. And yeah, I'm taking us to win.
Yeah, me too. And I just want to quickly finish on a bit of trivia, John. I'm going to test your Newcastle United knowledge. Are you up for this?
Thanks a lot.
John doesn't know what's coming, by the way. It's not that bad of a test. It's quite a nice one. So play along at home. We've mentioned there that Alexander Isak is just 2 goals away from becoming Newcastle United's second record goal scorer in the Premier League. We've mentioned Alan Shearer is top. We've mentioned Callum Wilson and Peter Beardsley take up 2nd and 3rd spot with Isak in 4th. Can you name, John, the other 6 players that make up the top 10? Would you like to have a guess?
And this is in the Premier League, of course,
In the Premier League.
Ever,
so,
as
yeah. So in 5th position, we've got someone
Andy
who...
Cole will be in there.
Yeah, so he's 6th. Number 5 is someone who scores 43. Les Ferdinand is... Yeah, Les Ferdinand's in there. He is 7th.
There's another 3, did you say?
Yeah, another 3. You've got a winger in there, very popular winger, can also play the trumpet.
Oh, Nobby, of course. Nobby Solano.
You've got a Newcastle number 9 who scored 37 goals, but probably better remembered for scoring spectacular goals than being consistent. Scored a brilliant brace against Chelsea. Yeah,
Pape
and then
Cisse?
Pape Cisse. And then number 10 on this list is a midfielder who Sir John Hall described as his best ever signing.
Rob Lee.
There we go. And Shola is the other one, joint on 43 with Andy Cole. I mean, not to... when you look at that record, Andy Cole got 43 goals in the Premier League for Newcastle United between 93 and 94, and Shola got 43 goals for Newcastle United between 2001 and 2014. So just slightly different levels, but nonetheless, a great spirit, Shola. But thank you, John, for playing along there.
Andy got them all in one season, I think, or the vast majority. He got 41 in one season, I think. Andy.
He did. He got 34 in the league, and I think he must have got a few more in the cup. So Isak's closing in on that. So let's see if that record stands at the end of the season. But thank you to John for the match preview / match review. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Please do hit thumbs up on the YouTube, hit subscribe as well, because a massive 60% of you guys who are watching the videos aren't subscribed. It's free to do so. You'll just get a little notification to say when a video is uploaded. It's there for you to watch it. It helps grow the audience, helps keep us doing this for free. Head over to chroniclelive.co.uk for all the latest Newcastle United news. And for myself and John, we shall see you guys next week.